Guten Tag. Ich bin Brad Kittel. Brad W. William Kittel. Ich bin in Deutschland geboren. Ansbach, near Nürnberg. Mi padre, mi pater, var un americano. Y mi madre, multi-americana. Pero en español, or ich bin geboren in Ansbach. I've been lucky in my life. My parents are both American. I was born in Ansbach, Germany. I was fortunate because I don't live there now, so I can speak freely. I can use my time. The one thing we have in life that we can measure. You might have 1 or 2 vials of sand. How long is that? How many words can you speak? How many words can you write? My name is Brad William Kittel. The name you get, the gene pool you choose to be born into, when you pick your father and your mother and you agree to come into this world, to manifest in body. Energy soul, WUB, in the book of Wibblry WUB. WUB is the energy soul we call chi or prana or source. It is a name in a fantasy fiction about a young man named Darby, who comes into the world in a very difficult way, through parents that didn't love each other, but happened to make love, thanks to my father's own mother brewing the hooch, the alcohol in the old days, homebrew, that my mother supposedly in her story drank on the last date, in which she ended up in the back seat and they had some intimacy and a seed was left behind, as we know how it can happen. And my father went off to Germany, a soldier, never thinking back that he was going to be getting married over that. Not long after that, being a good Catholic boy, my mother found out that she was pregnant and claimed my father to be the man who impregnated her. And so therefore, he flew her to Germany as a good soldier and married her just in time that I was able to sneak out of the womb in the Catholic cloak of not going to limbo. I was not a bastard child. He was not a bad father. My mother was now, though Protestant, married at least to the Catholic. That went on to have my brother born a 1.5 years later, my sister born a 1.5 years later, and ultimately, we came back to the United States. And when we did, well, you know what? I had dual citizenship. I was born in 1955 in a rare, narrow window because I was flown over there just in time before my brother, who was born, was automatically naturalized. But I, turns out, had dual citizenship, which meant that I could become a German or I could be an American. And all I had to do was effectively join the U.S. Army for a brief amount of time to gain my citizenship, my natural citizenship, and then be able to go to Germany without being inducted into the German army to serve the mandatory time in Germany. Now, the draft had just ended in high school as I was getting in my senior year. Vietnam was kind of coming to a close and Nixon was getting us out of there. And my dad was already had served and was back from Vietnam. In those days, when I joined at 17 and a half, I had a 2-year enlistment because people were so desperate to get people in the army. And I was a smart kid. I was crippled. They kind of looked by that, my bad back and history of, things like that. They ignored that because I was also smart. So I got to go into crypto computers of all things, the earliest crypto computers. We pulled out a whole drawer and it was 220 volts. You stuck your hand in there, you get electrocuted. I almost did. Saw stars. I know what 220 volts can do to you. I later, before I got out, I was working on the newest ones. They're about this big, about this tall, weighed about 50 pounds. And that was the newest modular crypto computers in the world. In the Army, we was using them to go ahead and send messages out to the missile bases. and back. And I used to service those back in the days. We did the teletypewriter, had a little tape. We fed the tape into there, and then we sent these signals out, the messages, through a card with a bunch of holes in it at each end that had to be changed out every 12 hours and matched up at every missile base that we were going to communicate with from the headquarters in Pirmasens, Germany. This is 1980, oh my goodness, excuse me, 1970s. Long time ago. So 1973 and 4 and 5, I was in the U.S. Army. You can see pictures of me, expert marksman. But I learned how to shoot when I was 13 because as an Army brat, we were given 50 rounds of .22 ammo and got to shoot every Saturday morning at 7 o'clock for free in the downstairs under the theater shooting range. It was run by the Army because it was on the Army post, and we were all being trained to be expert marksmen in case that we were ever attacked. Americans living on German soil with a perimeter and everything, that we would be able to defend ourselves, even as kids. So the guns we were shooting were equivalent to what Lee Harvey Oswald would have used in lower caliber, just .22s. So when I came back from Germany after John F. Kennedy had been assassinated, they said Lee Harvey did that, and I went, bullshit, I'm shot, no, can't do that. And I was accused of being a conspiracy theorist because I knew how guns worked and been trained in the military and got my expert marksman, pro marksman, expert medals by every weekend being scored, and then going to watch a movie in those days for, by the way, 25 cents. We went to the movie and got our popcorn. And this is, of course, 1963, 4, 5. So anyway, in the early days of the Army, I didn't understand what my dad did. But later on, I found out. My dad joined the Army so he could go kill people. He wanted to go kill Koreans. He was disappointed that he got in too late. My dad was an old-fashioned man who was brought up in Michigan, redneck. And of all things, he had the name Cattell. Our heritage was German. My uncle was in the Navy. 2 uncles in the... 3 of my uncles, including my dad, of the 5 boys, went in the military. It was expected. Go off to fight Germans. Of all things, we had only been over in this country from Germany 1 generation, in some cases. So, the Cattell name actually goes back to Germany. Believe it or not, there were very few Cattells in the United States when I first arrived over here as a child. Even as a teenager, there were less than 900 and maybe 1,000. So the Cattell name, K-I-T-T-E-L, goes all the way back in history, believe it or not. I didn't. I just found out now that I'm in my 60s and 70s. I'm 70 now. Where did I come from? Where did I get these genes? Why am I always all my life wanting to be a writer? But guess what? Sometimes it's because that's what you're sent to do. Now, in the background, you'll see a couple things. The Don Quixote. Recognize that? For me, that was premonitional. For me, that meant my ability to go ahead and to get through my crisis of trying to defend the weak, to try to do right. And so, go sit down. Go lay down, baby. My dear dog and my friend, who's also like a 7-year-old, is at my feet again. That'd be Rocky. Has a sore foot. Now, I'm getting water out of a copper, and I think this is one of the important things. If you believe in youthing, how do you honor thy vessel? Use copper, keep your water in. Don't drink tap water. Inside of there, you'll find I have shungite. I always keep shungite in the bottom because that has crystals that then charge up the water with what you equivalent of sort of carbon-60, but in its best form, Russian shungite. Now, that combined with the copper and your water sitting in there before you drink it, preferably out of a copper cup. In this case, it's not going to be in there long, but sometimes that actually tells a story, what cup you're drinking out of. I have a couple cups, but sometimes a story can be held in a small space. In small spaces, things like this that were made ages ago. That goes back to the Ying Dynasty. That's in China. Human creativity is far, far, far beyond what our capacity now demonstrates. And I'm one who is hyper creative. They apparently came up with a hyper something for everything. I'm hyperactive, no doubt about that. I do have an attention deficit issue because I'm like a squirrel. And next thing you know, I burn my eggs. This week I managed to burn 3 meals out of 6 I've tried to cook. I have to sit in front of it. If I walk away and leave the fire on, I get distracted. But you know what? It's because I have so many things going on. And that's not a bad thing.